Welcome, everyone. Today is another episode of The Life of Charles Schmidt. This is episode 11. Charles, welcome one more time for being here today. Welcome to episode 11. Episode 11 is going to be about passing the torch. Charles, you have been amazing throughout all those first videos or previous videos. You have been talking about a lot about generosity, gratitude, kindness, and helping people, giving, and so many other amazing talents and basically tokens that people can have that a person can adapt, and a lot of that's kind of like what your message is being about. So today we'll be talking about passing the torch. So welcome one more time.
Thank you.
Charles, what has been the biggest lesson that you try to pass on about money and giving?
Well, I think that some of the recipients respond. They're very grateful. They're very happy. I think the most valuable things that I pass along is not money, but information and teaching. I fancy myself a teacher. And the greatest lesson that I've learned, it's not the amount of time you spend with an individual that determines whether there's success. It's whether that they have it inside themselves to be interested in, a worthy cause, whatever it is.
That's amazing to hear from you, Charles. Do you believe that generosity is something that you're born with or something that you have learned along the way?
I don't think you're born with generosity. I think you develop it. I think that in sometimes a good environment, it helps you to be generous, or sometimes if you come from a wealthy family, you think you're entitled to it, and so your objective is to spend the money. And if you have so much money, then you figure you're going to give it away, and you're going to get fame by having your name put on the building and say, such and such, boy, what a great person, look at this, it's got a name on the building.
Now that you mentioned entitlement, what values do you hope for the next generation to carry into their giving?
Well, I hope I instill the importance of honesty and trust and the value of friendship. And you have a friend you can go talk to, and you have the confidence. Like two guys yesterday, they could have, I was disappointed with both of them, except I walked away happy with them because they convinced me that the good qualities they had were actually good qualities, and that they just, didn't hold up to standards. Whereas I am very familiar with that, in that so many times in my life I have disappointed people, and a lot of people say, or just for example, this glass guy yesterday, Danny, he's been procrastinating, and because his glass supplier hasn't done it, and this and that, and it's been 3 weeks now, and each time he tells me he's sorry. Now he's Latino, so he gets his buddy on because he speaks better English, and he says that Danny's sorry, this and that. I said, and I know they're on a speakerphone. I said, look, Danny's sorry, you're sorry, Carlos, the glass man's sorry, and I'm sorry that I'm going to have to get somebody else to do this job. Well, no, and I feel real bad. And I said, Danny, I really like you, but I want you to give me the glass, and and you don't have it, and so, well, I'll call him back. Well, this has been going on for 3 weeks. Guess what? The glass shows up yesterday.
That's great.
I said, not gonna. I didn't call you up for you to tell me you're sorry. Tell me.
I mean, sometimes communication is a key, right? I think it's like instead of waiting for you to call them, they can call you and be like, "Hey, we're still in standby. The glass hasn't made it's not ready, but
it's a lesson to him, and it's
absolutely."
And then there's a couple of pieces missing that not here. So the job was 2,000 something. I said, Danny, and he was telling me. I said, I'm going to cancel the order. This was before he called the day before. I said, oh no, I'm already out. I've already given this guy a deposit. I said, well, I guess you're going to lose that $1,000 because this. Oh no. Then I said, so he doesn't bring all the pieces. So instead of giving him the $2,000, I'm missing about $200 worth of pieces, but I'm withholding $500 because I don't, he may not come back for another 3 weeks or something. Yeah. Or maybe he'd bring him back today. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did the right thing. And, speaking of misunderstandings and things like that, what will be the biggest misunderstanding do you believe young people have about money and giving?
Well, I think they think that if they give away money, that will be less for themselves. A lot of times you give away money, it's an investment. You put it in, give it to somebody, give it to their education, give it to anything. And have to be careful where you spend the money. Spend it on going to football games, Super Bowl, whatever, concerts, stuff like that. That's okay in moderation, but you gotta. And another misunderstanding young people have is they think they believe things that aren't true, such as a statement. Well, if you buy real estate, it'll always go up. Well, many times the real estate market crashed, wiped out a lot of people.
Correct. How do you teach someone to care when they haven't struggled or facing hardship the way you did growing up?
I think that you can tell by somebody's how they feel, their disposition. Like if the more you do for somebody, the more you help them, the more genuine they are. We had a landscaper that here at the building wasn't doing a good job a couple years ago. She comes in, she does a great job. She and hardworking, Latino crew, and they're real good, and I'm real happy, and I really like her, and I want to help her with her business. I give her money. I gave her $10,000, and I said, because her truck was broken or something and she's got a real good business and does a real good job at a real fair price. Now, this was when I was president the last time I got her here, and then I'm not president anymore, and a new guy comes in, and he got his friend that does a real good job of landscaping, and they want to get rid of her. And the only way they can say they want to get rid of her is say she's not doing a good job, which is not true. She is doing a good job. So you got this new guy that's going to come in, and he's going to do this and that, and a new guy, and I said, look, let's say it's not, I don't know. I can't do anything about it. And she says, well, guess what? The new guy didn't show up.
Wow.
That guy didn't show up. So let's say he's still here in a couple of years later, and she knows that I haven't been feeling well from time to time. So she calls me and she brings over tea and stuff, fruit. She texted me yesterday, and just out of the blue, want to see how you're doing, hoping you're well. I think about you and all that. I haven't heard from her for a couple of months, but I wish I could find this letter here. But in other words, that is a great reward from me.
Yeah.
And she's still remembering me.
Oh, that's nice. Speaking of quality in people, though, what do you teach your family or mentees about vetting who or what to support? Like in this case, you were debating whether or not supporting the guy with the glass, but then you also, this landscaper, you were supporting her. What have you taught your family or your mentees about dealing with people like that?
They don't ask me. They have their own charities. My daughter's highly involved in her parent-teacher association. My son he's involved in all his kids' school projects, things like that. So, and they don't ask me, and I don't tell them. It's just not a conversation. The conversation should come up, but it doesn't come up.
Gotcha. So on the previous video, you did talk about the Charles Foundation a little bit and what the main goal is of that foundation. Do you plan to involve your family in the foundation or in the giving process at all?
Yes, I would. I want to involve my family. It's a little bit more difficult in that my daughter lives up in Virginia, and my son lives in Boca. I'm especially interested in my grandson, who did that video, the YouTube video, when he was 11 years old on the 80th birthday. I want to support him. I would like to have him participate, but it's difficult for me to get him involved in that he's 1,000 miles away. So, yes, I would like to have him more involved, yes.
And, as you were talking about involvement, what are the first 3 lessons that you could give anyone that you mentor?
Well, first of all, they have to be genuinely interested in the project. They have to be totally honest, trustworthy, and then do what they say they're going to do. If they say they're going to do something, do it. Like all these people that are going to help me with this project, you're the only one. You're here now. Josiah's here today.
Yeah, I totally understand. In another one of the videos that we have done, you did talk about people not making a difference in the world and do nothing or positive for the world. How do you encourage others to make a positive impact in the world?
Well, I try to set an example. I can't do it. There's much stronger, more powerful mentors than me on YouTube. And if you look for the information, you'll be able to find it.
Great. Recently, you mentioned about, how people constantly asking you for money, asking you for donations. Have you ever been surprised about how the next generation sees giving differently in the way you do?
Well, it's been very rewarding for me. I've wasted a lot of money and spent it. I wish I knew, many years ago. Well, first of all, I never had a whole lot of money to give away until recently. So I'm in the learning process. I wasn't educated along the way. I just happened to fall into it very late in life, and I've educated myself with the help of quite a few others. Most of them say, be careful, and say, well, I wouldn't do that, or don't give them money, or that charity's no good, or be careful. And sometimes I've been careful, and sometimes I should have been more careful.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned also in the past about how you're inviting other people that have either a greater capacity than you, financially speaking, about giving. How has that process of teaching these people about giving taught you about yourself? Meaning, you just mentioned about I educated myself, but what have you learned about it?
Well, it taught me that it's very rewarding, that there's people that I have underestimated and people that I have overestimated along the way. Like there's one guy in particular that I thought that he was just out for the money, and then I saw tears in his eyes when he was, expressing himself, and so that I realized that there was a genuine affinity. I mean, there are so many good people out there.
Got it. Do you feel that the torch about giving has been passed successfully, or do you think that you still have to persevere a little bit and keep teaching other people about giving?
I think it's a constant effort. I think there's people going to throw rocks at you along the way, and some is going to be true, and some of it is just going to be pure gossip. And some people think that, well, if I say enough bad things about somebody else, they will think that I'll think they're a better person. I don't. A lot of stuff, bad stuff that's said about somebody is just not true.
Yeah. And speaking of that, how do you emotionally prepare to let go and trust someone else with your legacy? Meaning, all these people that betrayed you, that somehow scam you, and that you felt that you trusted them, that you felt that they were with you. How do you prepare for that emotionally to let them go?
Well, it's very, very difficult. Now, people can be rehabilitated. In other words, somebody can do something really, really bad, and you can either forgive them or not forgive them, or just move on. Like, well, the big topic is the Menendez boys murdering their parents 30-some years ago. Well, they were real bad kids for doing that. And what the motivation was, I don't know. But they've been in prison for 30 years. And should they stay for the rest of their life? Or should they, they've been punished? Give them a chance to get out, because they're already supposedly helping people in person. So, for example, the people that scam me out of my money, I would, at some time, if they could come to me and say, geez,
Yeah. And
speaking of a simple, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Speaking of saying though, what do you think people will say about you years from now?
I don't know. There's going to be a lot of good stuff and a lot of bad stuff, and a lot of the bad stuff is true. I was a wild guy. I was not a good husband. I was not, responsible. I did, I'm ashamed of myself, but also I've been accused of a whole lot of stuff that's not true.
But let's suppose that if people talk about you in a positive way, would you rather be remembered for what you gave or how you made others feel?
I don't want to be remembered for anything, any of that stuff. I want to be remembered for something somebody learned about be honest or something like that. Doesn't make any difference what the source is. And this is not an original thought. It's in the Bible. It's every place.
Continuing with the whole philosophy of making the world a better place, if you had to sum up your philosophy about a better world in one sentence, what would that be?
I think the new Pope is on the right track. I think it's love, get no war. Like there's a lot of things about the Catholic Church. They've been sued for billions of dollars for all of the priests that are, fooling around with young boys and stuff like that. But that doesn't make the Catholic Church bad. They have done a lot of good for millions and millions of people. So, in other words, and the Pope doesn't need to be remembered for he was the Pope, and his name is Pope Leo now. You just got to remember for his message.
Correct. And, speaking of messages, as a last question for this video today, what would be the last, if you had to send the last message in your life, what would be that one message that you would send out to the world?
I'd say just have do what you can to make the world a better place. Have a positive attitude. Don't dwell on the negatives. That you can get overwhelmed by that. Maintain your health and good attitude and have a good life.
That's amazing, Charles. Thank you again for another video. Everyone, stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.